Hi everyone, I'm Spencer. Let's see how this goes. There it is, great. So I'm gonna talk to you guys about kittens today. And what I learned from fostering, feeding, and frolicking with kittens, specifically. So there's this Hebrew phrase, Tikkun Olam, that translates generally to repairing the world. It's a pretty big idea, trying to repair the world. And this was presented to me for the first time back in 2005, when I was 12 years old, when I was preparing for my bar mitzvah. And everyone who becomes a bar mitzvah at my synagogue in New York City, Road of Shalom, you do a project about repairing the world, about Tikkun Olam. And you get to pick whatever it is for you. What you might think of as community service, but it has these bigger implications, right? Repairing the world. And I said to my parents, it's gotta be something with animals. That's just, I knew that. I knew animals, and that was all I had. I never had pets. Maybe I was a little sick of people and I wanted to just work with animals. So that's what I said I wanted to do. My mom said, let's look at the ASPCA, the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. You could volunteer there, but you had to be 16. Like I said, I was only 12. No good, not an option. But we looked at the Animal Care Center of New York, what we call the city shelter, and they had a fostering program for fostering dogs and cats. And the fostering program is very important because there's such high levels of animal cruelty and animal homelessness in New York City and in the country that there's not enough room in the shelters, right, for all of these animals to live there. So people foster them and have them until they're ready to get adopted, and they go back. So it's something that is an ongoing process all the time, especially during the summer when the amounts of animals just goes through the roof. So that's what we decided to do. We said, yes, we're gonna foster. I was more of a cat person than a dog person, so we said, yes, kittens. Kittens are the answer. So my mom went, she took a class, it was a week long, learning about giving medicine and feeding habits and things like that, and we were ready to go. So we went, and they were like, here you go, a mom and her 4 kittens, Zoe and 4 kittens. The kittens were 1 day old, right, 1 day old. So this cracks me up, they had more time in the world than we did fostering kittens, right? So they were a little more experienced than we were. So we brought them home. So we brought them home, you can see there's Zoe and 4 kittens. We set them up in the bathroom, that's what they told us to do. They said that would be a good safe space. You put blankets everywhere. She has her little box. That's where you hang out. The kittens didn't have names, so we got to name them, which was a lot of fun. We were a very musical family, play a lot of musical instruments. So you have Zoe on the right, of course. On the top, I believe that's banjo. Then you have guitar. Then you have fiddle. And then you have mandolin going down from the top there. So that was the 4 of them. And unfortunately, within the first week, 3 of them died. Banjo, fiddle, and guitar. For different various reasons that we didn't quite understand, that were out of our control, and it just was sort of happened. And as a 12-year-old, it didn't strike me as very much. We just sort of put them in a box, brought them back to the shelter, and continued on. I think it was maybe a little more traumatizing for the parents than it was for 12-year-old Spencer. So that happens. Now we only have Zoe and Mandolin. And we came home, and Zoe had rejected Mandolin. She didn't want anything to do with her anymore. She was swiping at her and hissing at her. So we separated them, we called the shelter, we said, what do? They said, you bring Zoe back, and we'll teach you how to take care of Mandolin by herself. So now we just have Mandolin, just this one tiny kitten. And there's 2 things that a kitten needs, right? Heat, warmth, food. Those are the 2 things. So how are we gonna give that to her? One is some toys and a heating pad in the little box. You can get a sense of how tiny she is next to a balled up sock. With a heating pad, and then food, right? She's supposed to be nursing. At this age, she's supposed to be nursing. And she's also, at this point, still blind and deaf. Kittens at a week old, still their eyes are closed and their ears are closed. So she really had no sort of way to get around anymore. So she was very reliant on us. So we needed to feed her. We couldn't bottle feed her. She wasn't ready for that yet. She was used to nursing in the context of her mother, but a bottle by itself, she just couldn't quite get a handle on that. So the answer was a stomach tube. So you can see at the bottom there, 2 little stomach tubes. They're probably 4 inches long. So every 2 hours, because that's how often she would be eating, we needed to feed her with a stomach tube. So my mom would hold Mandolin, and I would feed the stomach tube down through her mouth into her stomach. We would have a little syringe of kitten formula, which we would then inject right into her stomach. You can see a little picture of that there. She looks a little miserable, but I promise, I'm 100% sure she knew that we were helping her, because when we were done, she wasn't hungry anymore. She looks a little scared. You can see a picture of me. There's 12-year-old Spencer in the background, braces and all. And you can see how tiny she is, right? I mean, she literally fit in the palm of your hand. I like to think that she's like yelling with joy, like singing with happiness, although she does look pretty terrified. So we would do this every 2 hours, all day long. My mom would do it when I was at school, and then at night, me and my siblings, my mom and dad would all do it, but through the night as well. I wouldn't do it every 2 hours. My mom didn't want me waking up all the time. I was in 5th grade, but every 4 hours maybe I got to wake up and help out. Eventually, she graduated to bottle feeding. If you ever get the chance to bottle feed a kitten for some reason, please take that opportunity. It's a great time. She did that, and then she eventually ate wet food and dry food like a normal cat does. And this went on until she was 8 weeks old. That's how long you foster kittens for, because at that age, they're able to get spayed and neutered, and then they can get adopted. So we have her till she's 2 pounds, 8 weeks. Spent a lot of time sitting on the floor, letting her crawl all over me, things like that. And then when 8 weeks came, it's time for her to get adopted. And the way that shelters do it, they do a closed adoption. So you don't know who's adopting them. You don't get updates. You don't get to go check up on them. But it turned out that the people up on the 5th floor were going to adopt her, which was like, great. I can just go upstairs and hang out with Mendelian whenever. But of course, it turned out that they were moving somewhere upstate New York, Westchester, something like that, somewhere where it wouldn't be so easy. And I remember that night, just like sitting in the bathroom with Mendelian, just like on the floor, hanging out with her, knowing that she was going to leave now, right after 8 weeks of hand raising this little kitten. And the mom came with her daughter to get the kitten. They were so excited. They were so happy. They were getting a new pet, this like cute little animal. And I was devastated, right, to give up Mendelian. And I just was lying on the floor crying after they left. I was just miserable. Needless to say, we took a break after that. We didn't just go back and grab some more kittens and keep going. But it brings me, eventually we did come back to kittens again. We did go get more kittens. And that brings me to this idea, right, of what's past this prologue, this theme of today, that what we had started with Mendelian became, what was the past for us, then became the prologue for the next family who got these kittens. And when we moved on to the next batch, I refer to them as batches of kittens. We took what we learned from Mendelian and from Zoe and from the other kittens and applied it to the next ones. And I'm just going to give you a few quick anecdotes of some other families of kittens that we've had. There you can see Mendelian. That's a great shot. My dad takes a lot of good photos of these kittens. We call these guys the planets. The mom's name was Venus, so we named them all after planets. And Venus decided that she needed all of her kittens to live under the bed. She didn't want them to be living in the cage where they were living in our house, so she moved them all under the bed. And we learned that sometimes the mom knows what's right better than we do. These were 4 kittens who we named after some family friends who don't live near us. We realized that wasn't so great of an idea either because we got very attached to them because they had real personalities for us. I couldn't not put these pictures in here. Once again, I think he's smiling, not screaming at me. We learned it's very difficult to take family pictures of these kittens. They're photogenic, but then also absolutely not photogenic. We've had big groups of kittens. These ones came with names. They were named after the guys from the Jackass movies. I'm not really sure why. But one time, this was 6. One time we had 10 kittens. We had 2 with their mom from the ASPCA. And our superintendent called us one day and said, I found 8 kittens in the bushes outside of the apartment building. Someone had just left them there, had just abandoned them. And he knew that we did this, so we brought them upstairs. So we called the ASPCA, we said, what do we do? We've got 8 and 2 and a mom. And they said, keep them separate, and then in a couple days what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the mom out of the room, you're gonna take the 8 and the 2, you're gonna bring them together, and you're gonna rub them all together so they all smell like each other, and then bring them back to the mom, and she'll be fine with it. And that's exactly what happened. We literally took her away, we brought all the kittens, rubbed them together, and then she walked back in, and now she had 10 children instead of 2. Did not ask any questions, took care of all of them. It was amazing. We've also had some kittens of differing abilities, if you will. This is a kitten named Gilfin who broke his leg while he was with us. And we had a kitten back in 2006, I think it was, named Horton, who had some mental issues. And all he wanted to do was just sit on my brother's lap, facing away from everyone. Just like sit there. He didn't want you to pet him, he didn't want to like play with toys, he didn't want to do anything. And we learned a lot from him about how to deal with other kittens who, when things like this happen, they can get depressed and you have to deal with that because maybe they just want to sit on you and just chill out like Gilfin liked to do. And one of the main things that I learned from doing this is that with the kittens, sometimes it's okay to just hang out with them. Like, it doesn't need to be a really, really active thing. I mean, it should be hands-on, but it's okay to just lie on the floor and let them sit on you. There's my sister hanging out with 6 kittens back in 2012. This picture cracks me up. Can you see the kitten there? Do you see that kitten sitting on my mom's back? You just hang out. You just hang out with these kittens, and it's a great way to rehabilitate them. We just had 2 over spring break, named Phoenix and Raven, who came straight off the street, and they really wanted nothing to do with people. And so we spent spring break sort of coaxing them out from under the bed and petting them and getting them used to dealing with people. That way they can get adopted. So there's one big question that everybody always asks, right? Inevitably, it's probably crossed your mind when I've been talking, is how do you give them up, right? How do you bring them back and let them go? And I mean, it's not easy, right? I told you the first time we had to do it, I was miserable. I mean, I was 12. It wasn't easy to give up that kitten, to give up Mendelian. But you learn how to do it, right? You figure out how to fully dedicate yourself to these kittens and then give them back and know that you did what you needed to do and they're going to go start somewhere else, right? But it's not just letting them go and then never thinking about them ever again, right? Because it's what's past is prologue, not just what's past is past and what's prologue is prologue. And it's this idea that you can take what you learn there and apply it to the next thing. And of course, it has a lot of bigger implications for graduating and things like that. And I think it can apply to other things in life, but especially when you're caring for someone or caring for something, that you need to fully dedicate yourself to it, but at some point that's going to be done, right? You can't care for something forever and ever and ever. And we've continued to do this now for 11 years. So it's been 281 kittens in 11 years. 22 mom cats along the way, so that makes 303 total felines. There you can see Mendelian grown up, probably around 8 weeks. So I like to think that that's 303 families, right, that got new pets. That what became the past for us, that last group of kittens, then became 4 families who got a new pet, and they were going to have a great time for the next however many years. So what was our past became somebody else's prologue. So it brings me back to this idea of Tikkun Olam, right? Repairing the world, which seems like a daunting task, but I think that for a 12-year-old, it actually seems pretty simple, that I didn't say, that's ridiculous, right? I can't do that. I said, okay, yeah, animals, cool, a starting place. Because people think I need to be part of something bigger than myself, right? I feel like you hear that a lot. I want to be a part of something bigger than me. And I think it's good sometimes to just start small, just really, really small, like kitten size small. Thanks a lot, everybody.